What's up, gamers? Welcome back to the channel. So on today's video, I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the Switch 2 and the first year of its life cycle. And just take a look back and see how it performed, what the games were like, and overall just give a breakdown of my thoughts on the console. When the Switch 2 came out, I actually went to a midnight release at a GameStop to pick one up, which is the first time in my life that I ever did that, and it was a pretty interesting experience because you would see like this whole line of people just wrapping around the store. You know, it was really cool just getting there early in the morning to get my pre-orders in and seeing like other gamers with like chairs set up, people with their Switch ones playing games and just, you know, getting ready for the storm that was to come. Release night, I got there, you know, like I think about two or 3 hours early. You know, I spent some time in my car because from where I was sitting, the line looked small. Then when I got closer to the GameStop, I saw that it was wrapping around the store. I was like, oh damn, I wish I got here like an hour earlier. But it was all good. It was all good. I was able to be patient. I brought my Switch 1 along with me, and I played some WarioWare and some Smash Bros. Ultimate while I was waiting online. In fact, at one point, a manager from a nearby, I think it was a Chick-fil-A, came over and just asked like what was going on. And people told her about the Switch 2 launch. And, you know, I guess she wasn't a gamer because, I mean, if she was, she would have known about it and how big of a deal it was. But yeah, I waited online. One person online who stuck out to me was what I'm guessing maybe in like her 40s. She was a mom who was there to pick up a Switch 2 for her kids. And you know, I respect that. It's like you maybe you don't care about the games, but you get that your kids do, so you're gonna put yourself through sitting or standing in this super long line just to get something to make your kids happy. That's good mothership at work right there. Anyway, another interesting thing that happened was there was some dude creeping around and like not saying anything to people, and it was actually getting the GameStop staff worried, so they wound up like, I don't think they called the police, but they called someone because they seemed concerned. And well, as far as I'm aware, there was no like violence or anything, so that guy, I guess, was just there to get attention or something like that. But you know, there are weirdos out there who'll do that sort of thing. But thankfully, there was no Switch 2 opening night shooting, at least not at the GameStop I was at. Now, I do remember hearing how there was a GameStop in New York City that accidentally like stapled the receipt onto the wrong part of the box and would puncture the screens of the Switch 2, so that must have been a freaking nightmare for whoever went to that GameStop. But yeah, it was a really cool experience to go out and just actually be at the midnight launch of a console, like from second one. And then when I got home, I was already really tired, so I didn't even play any games on it. I just started up the Switch 2. I was like, okay, this is cool. Then I went to bed, and the next day I played Mario Kart World. But yeah, that was just the launch. Let's talk about the actual console itself now. We go ahead and open up this case. Okay. I didn't get this case the day of. It was like it was something I grabbed, I think, like a month or two later. But yeah, the Switch 2 itself, I think, is a really well-made piece of hardware. You know, the Joy-Cons have a nice feel to them. They fit better in my adult hands than the Switch 1 Joy-Cons did. You can see on the back here, it has a kickstand that works significantly better than the Switch 1 kickstand. I remember, here, let me turn this so you can see it better. But yeah, the Switch 1 kickstand was like this dinky, fragile little piece of plastic. This is actually feels sturdy, and I actually use it semi-frequently in tabletop mode as opposed to the Switch 1, which I almost never used in that tabletop configuration because I was always paranoid that it would, break and fall. And in fact, just for comparison's sake, I happen to have my Switch 1 right here, so I'm gonna pull that out real quick so I can show you guys. Yeah, take a look at this guy. Oh, look at all those smudges on the screen. Yeah, I could have taken better care of him. But anyway, yeah, look at this. Look at this little piece of garbage. See how weak that looks? It's like that one Family Guy joke. Wimpy, wimpy, hefty, hefty, or however it went. But yeah, I was always afraid to use this, and there's some other improvements on the hardware itself, like the charger being on the top so that you can charge it when it's in tabletop mode and you have the kickstand out as opposed to being on the bottom, which I always thought was kind of obnoxious. And yeah, speaking of charging, the Switch 2 has a way better, or not way better, a way worse battery life because it's beefier hardware. But at the same time, I don't use it in handheld mode that often, and when I do, it's often like while I'm watching like a movie or something, or YouTube videos, so I don't bring it out with me that often, and when I do, I haven't found myself in a situation where I've needed to use it for longer than 2 hours. But yeah, since we have both of these over here, I can show you more comparisons. See this little button here on the back of the Switch 2? When you press that, that's how you get the, not on the back of the Switch 2, on the back of the Joy-Con. That's how you remove the Joy-Con. So you hold down that button, and the Joy-Con unclips from the Switch 2. I believe it uses like some sort of magnet thingy to attach. Now with the Switch 1, yeah, see, there's another button in a similar place. But unlike Switch 2, when you hold that button down, it doesn't just come off the side. You have to it's on like a rail, so you have to basically pull it up, which, I mean, it's not a big deal, but Switch 2 controller, you can easily just sort of snap it on, snap it off. Nice and easy. With this, you have to go through the rail, which again, not a big deal, but it's definitely an improvement, and you can tell just by looking at the Joy-Cons side by side. This one, is a lot larger. It's more durable. Like I mentioned before, it just feels better in my hand as opposed to the Switch 1 Joy-Con, which is kind of puny and not the easiest to get a grip on. And the other thing is that the Switch 2 Joy-Con has a mouse mode where you can turn it on its side, and with certain games you can use it like a mouse. This is like right click, left click, side button. I haven't really used that feature much yet, since I don't really have any games that make use of the mouse feature, but I still think it's cool that it's there. And also, apparently, you can plug in a actual normal USB mouse to use in mouse compatible games, which I think is pretty cool. And I'm going to be honest with you, if I do use the mouse mode, I would probably honestly just plug in a normal mouse, because this feels a little awkward because it's very narrow compared to a normal mouse, which is like nice and fat and fills up your whole hand. Here it just feels kind of awkward. Maybe it would feel better in like small child hands, but if you're an adult, you'll probably just prefer to use a normal mouse. Well, what game do I have in here? Luigi's Mansion 3. Not a Switch 2 game, but yeah, I was playing that a little while ago. Oh yeah, that's another thing. The Switch 2 has significantly more powerful specs than the Switch one. From what I understand, it's like it has 10 times the graphical capabilities, and it looks a lot closer, like I would say about the same as a PS4 Pro, maybe a little bit better. Don't quote me on that exactly, but either way, it's significantly better looking than the Switch one. Switch one graphics were like maybe on par with like PS3 and 360 era. This is more PS4 Pro. So even though it's technically still a little behind the curve, but that's what Nintendo has been doing since the Wii era, because by doing that, it allows them to offer their consoles at a lower price point than the competition, which is like their whole niche. And, well, speaking of price point, yeah, Switch 2 was $450 when it first came out, and you could get a bundle that would be $500 with a digital copy of Mario Kart World. And then I think later on they did a Pokemon Legends ZA bundle. Now, I remember when the Switch 2 first came out, that was a huge point of contention with people, because everyone was really pissed off about the price, and I saw a lot of YouTubers saying shit like, oh yeah, it's overpriced garbage, there's not going to be any games, Yeah, I think a lot of those criticisms, from so-called Nintendo grifters, were actually bullshit, because the fact of the matter is that when the next PlayStation and the next Xbox, Project Helix or whatever they're calling it, come out, those are probably going to be, if we're lucky, $900 for, the base console, and, without any games. And I think if you think that $500 is too expensive for the Nintendo Switch 2, just wait until the next generation PlayStation and Xbox come out. And also with the Steam machine, they just announced the price of, I think, what was it, $1,090 something around that, or it might have been $1,050, which is still pretty freaking pricey. And I think that's for the half a terabyte model. But either way, the point I'm trying to get at here is the Switch 2 is still the budget choice if we're talking about strictly new gaming hardware. I think that's just going to become more abundantly clear as time goes on, because a lot of people were complaining about the price, and here in America, right around the time the Switch 2 came out, was when our president announced the tariffs, and a lot of people were freaking out over the tariffs and inflation and stuff. So it was kind of a time of financial turmoil. So in a way, I don't necessarily blame people for not wanting to buy a $500 gaming machine, especially when you have the Switch 1, which is basically the same thing and significantly cheaper. Speaking of the Switch 1 and 2 basically being the same thing, let's go ahead and turn them on real quick. Of course, this is not charged. Yeah, give me a second. I'm going to use, not my video editing skills, but my time manipulation skills to skip ahead in time so I can get some charge in my Switch 1 and show you guys a comparison of the main menus between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. Alright. 3, 2, 1. Time manipulation, go! Alright, time manipulation, end. Okay, so as you can see, when we turn on the Switch 1 and Switch 2, the initial lock screen looks very similar. So let's go ahead and you press the button 3 times on both. It's the same thing. I think I had the volume turned down, but they both make a sound effect when you get to the home screen. And what are you noticing? Yeah, the home screen UI is basically the same between both of them. Like you can see here, we have the icons on the bottom. Here it's pretty much all the same icons, except they're wrapped in this bar, and there's also that orange communication icon for if you use game chat. You know, this is the same. The layout of all the games. Can you make folders on the Switch one? Or groups, as they call them? Yeah, you can. Okay. So yeah, you can organize your software into different groups. I don't know if that was on Switch 1 before Switch 2 came out. Or what. But either way, yeah, you can see it's basically the exact same layout. And honestly, I think that's pretty boring. You know, that is one of the things I think is most disappointing about the Switch 2 is just the fact that they did nothing to change the layout. It's basically exactly the same, except, oh wow, the icons have rounded edges instead of, you know, being pure squares. Ooh. Crazy, right? Yeah, they basically just didn't change anything for the Switch 2. So, admittedly, that is pretty boring. And even though the Switch 2 is absolutely a new console, when it was first coming out, I saw some YouTubers saying that it was basically a half-generation upgrade, you know, similar to the new 3DS or the PS4 Pro. Which, no, it isn't. It's way more powerful than that, but I don't blame them for saying that because it kind of feels that way, even though it's literally not. I definitely think the Switch 2 feels better than the Switch 1 and is essentially what the Switch 1 should have been in the first place. Also, I want to point out that, you know, 1 year of using my Switch 2, I have encountered 0 Joy-Con drift. I know that was like a really controversial thing back on the Switch 1. I don't know if that problem's been completely eliminated or what. Like, if you have a Switch 2 and you're experiencing drift, let me know in the comments down below. For me, the hardware, I have not encountered drift at all, and I'm very happy about that. I should also mention that there is a Switch 2 Pro controller, but I did not get it because, as far as I'm aware, it's basically the same as the Pro 1 controller, except it has 2 extra programmable buttons on the bottom. Oh, how much was it? 70, 80 maybe? I forget exactly how much it was, but for me, it's not worth it because the Switch 1 Pro 1 controller works just fine. Yeah, I could definitely see why you'd pick that up if you don't already have a Switch Pro controller, but for me, I'm perfectly fine with the one I already have. I also did not pick up the camera because I just don't have any reason to use it. I'm not too crazy about the communication mode, which, to be honest, I haven't used at all. I mean, it's basically just Discord. Why would I use that when I could just use Discord, you know what I mean? And if I ever needed to do video chat with someone, I could just use my phone. So, yeah, I'm just not interested in grabbing up the camera, although I do think there are some neat little features, like with Star Fox coming out in a few days. You can basically have a Star Fox VTuber model while you're chatting with your friends, which I mean, yeah, I guess that's kind of cool, but it's not worth me buying a camera for. Star Fox, that's going to be the game that sort of kicks off the second year of Switch 2, as in it's the first major exclusive. And that's another reason I wanted to, you know, make this video and get it out, since it's the 23rd as of right now with me recording this video. And yeah, I wanted to get this out before Star Fox. I just figured now would be a good time to do this. I mean, honestly, a good time to do this would have been a few weeks ago, but hey, better late than never, right? Okay, so now that I've spoken about, you know, the actual hardware and the UI and comparing it to the Switch one, let's get to the most important part, the video games. The major launch title for Switch 2 was this bad boy right here, Mario Kart World. Yeah, there was a lot of controversy about this game when it came out over, the price point of it being, what was it, $80? And, people shitting on the open world aspect of the game. I'm gonna just say it right now. This right here is easily the most overhated game of 2025. Okay, for starters, gameplay-wise, this is easily one of the best Mario Kart games ever made. And a big part of the reason for that is because of the new jumping mechanics they added and the ability to wall run, or wall drive, whatever you want to call it, and grind on rails. I think mechanically this has, I would say, the highest skill ceiling of any Mario Kart game to date. And it just feels really great to play. Just having these new abilities at your disposal, I think, adds a lot of depth to the gameplay and really makes it feel like, it's not just Mario Kart 8 with better graphics. It feels like a new step forward in Mario Kart gameplay. Now, there definitely are some legitimate criticisms that I've heard of this game that I had myself, like, it's called Mario Kart World, right? And the open world part of the game sucks. Like, really, it's just this giant playground for you to ride around in and do challenges in, but the challenges, even though they're honestly pretty fun, they don't really unlock anything other than stickers that you barely notice. You just don't really have much of an incentive to actually explore the open world and find the challenges. Now, there are some good aspects. For example, I really love how the NPCs have sometimes unpredictable behavior. Like, you'll see like Toads and Koopas driving around, and sometimes they'll just like go off-road, or how you'll sometimes see drivers get out of their carts and walk into actual like buildings scattered around the open world. Like, most games would just have the characters disappear once they get off screen, but the fact that they went that far to add that level of detail to the NPC behavior, I think, is honestly pretty impressive. And generally, the open world is pretty gorgeous, and I do like how, we have an idea of where the courses are relative to each other. So there's some nice things there, but I really feel like the open world is generally undercooked. They could have had, say, a story mode. Now, I wouldn't expect it to be like, some big, open world RPG where you're driving around doing quests like Fallout, as much as I would absolutely love Mario Kart Fallout. That I don't think anyone was expecting that. And oh man, imagine if they did that and the story just had like the highest stakes of any Mario game. An omniversal threat is threatening the Mushroom Kingdom, and the only way to stop it is by Mario Karting. Like, that would have been so great. Okay, so there's something very important about my experience playing Mario Kart World that I forgot to mention here, so I'm using my time manipulation abilities to interject my thoughts into the past so you can hear them now, where they're more relevant. In order to make the whole process of clearing the Grand Prix and exploring the game world more fun, I actually made some self-imposed rules. The first was that if I wanted to challenge a Grand Prix, I would have to go and find the actual starting line of the first course out in the open world. For me, doing this made exploring the open world a lot more fun because it gave it a sense of purpose that wasn't just wandering around and clearing challenges aimlessly. And then the second self-imposed rule was that if I wanted to use a character other than Mario, who is the first character that the game starts you with when you first boot it up, I would have to find them driving around in the open world and ram into them to quote-unquote unlock them. Doing these two things definitely improved my enjoyment of the game, and it's a sandbox game, so I guess that's within the spirit, but it's still a little silly that I had to essentially DIY a story mode. I really wish we could have gotten an actual proper story mode programmed into this game. If you do wind up deciding to get Mario Kart World, I absolutely suggest playing through the game in the way I just described. I think you'll have a lot more fun in the open world if you do it that way. Or hell, even come up with your own challenges. You do you. Mario Kart at the end of the day is meant to be a baby and normie game, so I'm sure that doing something like that would be, a little too much for 6-year-olds and normies to handle in a cartoony kart racing game. But who knows, maybe we'll get some form of story mode, or maybe something like the challenge mode from Mario Kart DS added in a future update or DLC, which, I'm surprised they didn't announce a DLC at the recent Nintendo Direct, but I think it's going to happen sooner or later. They updated Mario Kart 8 for like 10 years, and if you think that Mario Kart World isn't getting the same treatment, you gotta get your head out of your ass, to be blunt with you. Now, another criticism I have of this game is I think the battle mode feels really underwhelming. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because we just went from Mario Kart 8, which had easily the most extensive battle mode of any Mario Kart game. There was like 5 or 6 different battle modes in that. This only has 2 battle modes, and it's basically just coin and balloon battle, and all of the battle mode maps feel a little too large, if you ask me. I kind of think Mario Kart versus mode works better with less people, and I wish that there was at least like smaller versions of the maps, so you could select to do like 8-player or 12-player, whatever. I think that would have helped make the battle mode a lot more enjoyable, but unfortunately that isn't the case. The Knockout Tour mode is great. It's easily the best new thing in this game. Basically, the way it works is you're doing one long linear race, right? And as you're racing, there are different checkpoints that you have to get to, and at every checkpoint, a certain amount of racers get eliminated. So, like the first checkpoint, you have to make at least, like, I forget the exact numbers, but let's just say 12th place, and then you have to be in 8th place at least, otherwise you get knocked out. And then it's 4th place, and then it's, last man standing. So it's almost like a battle royale sort of thing in a way, but I thought that was really fun. Yeah, there was also a lot of controversy when this game came out because Nintendo did an update where they made it so that during the matchmaking you could only pick courses that were linked together, meaning that the first lap would just be you driving in a straight line, and then you'd get to the next course and do one lap and it would be done. And a lot of people, myself included, didn't like that. Now, I remember using Discord servers to find custom matches where they would purposefully set the rules up so you could have that more classic Mario Kart 8 style online experience. I think they might have fixed that in an update. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, because I haven't played this game in a while. Overall, Mario Kart 8, not Mario Kart 8, Mario Kart World, in my opinion, is one of the better Mario Kart games. It's definitely better than Mario Kart 8 was when that first came out, and I think that over time, with updates, this will continue to grow, and eventually most people are going to forget about some of the issues that it had when it first came out, and it will go on to be a beloved entry in the series. Even though I think those issues were blown way out of proportion. I think a lot of the hate this game got last year was mainly because of the price. That's just how people on the internet are. They just want things to be angry at. So anyway, Mario Kart World, definitely a great game. Definitely worth picking up if you want a cartoony racing game to play on your Switch too. Now, I'm going to go in chronological order here. of the games that I have gotten and played for the system so far. So next up, we have Donkey Kong Bonanza. So this game was a huge surprise at the Nintendo Direct that revealed the Switch 2. And, well, I don't think it revealed the Switch 2. I think it just gave us more information about it. Either way, this was a huge surprise at the end of that Direct. I kind of remember thinking that, hey, this is going to be a new 3D Mario game, but, you know, as the trailer went on, it became apparent that it was actually a Donkey Kong game. And I'm very, very happy that Nintendo decided to put Donkey Kong in the spotlight, because this franchise was pretty dormant over the last decade. I think the last major game it had before this was, Tropical Freeze, which I personally didn't play. And it's also the second ever 3D Donkey Kong platformer. And, you know, that's something I've wanted for a very long time. Now, is this game better than Donkey Kong 64? I don't know. I mean, I do love how Donkey Kong 64 has a bunch of different characters, and it also has that rare magic. But on the other hand, this game has much more refined gameplay mechanics. You know, the levels just feel more well thought out. I mean, I haven't played Donkey Kong 64 in a very long time, so I don't want to give like a super in-depth comparison. Yeah, I definitely thought this was a great game. I can see how you would be disappointed if you were expecting Donkey Kong 64 2 out of this, but at the same time, if you watched any of the trailers, I don't know why you would expect that. It honestly feels more like a sequel or successor to Mario Odyssey in a way. In fact, it was made by the same team that made Mario Odyssey, and in my opinion, this game is way freaking better than Mario Odyssey. Like, the movement feels better. The level design is more interesting. I like how the things you collect in this game, which are the bananas, or, the crystal bananas, or banandium gems, whatever they were called, actually give you skill points that you can use to unlock new moves for Donkey Kong throughout your quest. That just makes collecting the collectibles feel so much more rewarding, because instead of just seeing a number going up and unlocking new areas like the way it worked in Mario Odyssey, in this game you see your character gradually becoming more powerful throughout the course of your quest, and it makes every banandium gem you find just a joy to unlock. And there's also these fossils you can find, which, if I recall correctly, were used to unlock outfits for Donkey Kong and Pauline, which, yeah, that's another really interesting thing about this game, is the fact that they actually did something with Pauline, of all characters. I really think that they should not have spoiled that in the trailers. I think it would have been a huge shocker for people to actually play this game and get to the part where you find out that the Odd Rock is actually freaking Pauline, of all people. Easily the most unique and interesting thing Nintendo's ever done with that character. And I'm gonna just rip the band-aid off right now. No, they do not ever explain why she's a kid in this game. They explain why she's a kid in real world terms, which was for marketing and to get people talking about the game. But in the actual lore, I mean, unless they say something in the DLC, which I haven't played, no, they don't tell you why she just got turned into a kid, which I think is kind of a cop-out. But otherwise, the story in this game is pretty decent for a Donkey Kong game. I really enjoyed the new villains, the Void Company, the Evil Kongs. We haven't seen Evil Kongs, I don't think, since Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and these Evil Kongs had actual personality to them, which I think makes them way more memorable than the Kongs from Jungle Beat. I don't want to get too into spoils, but let's just say that this game also features the return of a beloved character. I'll just leave it at that. I imagine most people probably know at this point, and I mean, it's a Donkey Kong game. Spoilers aren't exactly the biggest concern with this, but still, just in case, I won't say anything else. But yeah, overall, Donkey Kong Bonanza, great game. arguably the best game on the Switch 2 right now. Arguably, I'll get more to that later. And again, I think this is absolutely an essential Switch 2 game. Like, I can see why some people would skip Mario Kart World, but Donkey Kong Bonanza, if you get a Switch 2 and you don't get this game, then, like, why are you even getting a Switch 2? It's a great 3D platformer. That's, like, the thing that Nintendo is known for, and I definitely think it's worth the time and money to dive into this adventure. There's also a DLC that costs $20. Whether or not that's worth it is up to you. I personally didn't get the DLC because I wasn't that interested in it, and it kind of, like, it reminded me of the hub area that unlocks at the end of Mario Odyssey, you know, where you get to go to the Mushroom Kingdom. It's sort of like that, except they lock it behind a paywall, and, you know, I kind of think it should have been in the base game. It's business. They gotta make money. So if you want that DLC, go ahead and pick it up. If not, then just ignore it. Both of these games came out within the first month of the Switch 2. The next major game that came out was Pokemon Legends ZA, which was also available on Switch 1, but I didn't get that game because I only had enough money to get one game that month, and I decided to get Digimon Story Time Stranger instead on Steam because I just thought that looked way better. I would eventually like to pick up Legends ZA, but it's just not a big priority for me right now, so I can't really tell you whether or not it's a good game because I haven't played it. What I can say is that Pokemon Legends Arceus on Switch 1 is fantastic, and if you're one of those people who picked up a Switch 2 and you skipped off on the Switch 1, that is definitely a game that's worth checking out. I think it's one of the better Pokemon games and easily the best of the Switch era Pokemon games. So, with that out of the way, the next game I got was in November. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. I gotta take a second to drink some water. Dum-de-da. So yeah, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. This game was pretty fun for the week I played it, but I gotta admit, I was pretty disappointed in some ways. Like, a big part of this game's marketing was the story, right? Like, that was all over the trailers and the press releases. They were saying, like, yeah, this one is a canonical entry in the Zelda series that tells the backstory of Tears of the Kingdom, where you get to play through Zelda's perspective of the events, which, you know, they basically sold it like this was Zelda's story mode for Tears of the Kingdom. But the truth is, it's actually more Rauru's story mode. Rauru and this guy. Should I say who it is? I mean, I didn't spoil Donkey Kong, and I feel like spoilers are more important for this game, but I kind of do have to talk about spoilers for this game to get you to understand why I was somewhat disappointed with it. So yeah, if you don't want to be spoiled on Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, go ahead and yeah, just skip ahead in the video. Alright, so this guy is Metal Link, essentially. I think he was the hero's spirit channeled into this Zonai war mech that they find towards the beginning of the game, and you basically find out that, like, Ganon corrupted one of these so that he could use it as a secret weapon to take over Hyrule, and in the process wound up destroying the hundreds of other war mechs that were hidden in the Zonai ruins, which, I mean, why? You could have just taken up a whole army and easily conquered Hyrule, but whatever. But yeah, this guy is found by this Korok here named Kalamo, who I actually loved him. He is easily the best character in this game, and it's a shame we'll probably never see him again, but still a great character. You start off the game playing as Zelda, but yeah, I felt like there were more missions where they want you to play as Rauru, and it really felt like more his story than Zelda's. This is not a deal breaker at the end of the day, because to be fair, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which similar to this game was meant to be a prequel to Breath of the Wild, or more of a what-if scenario, that game prominently featured Zelda as the main character, and even though Link was front and center on the box, it was definitely more her story. So Zelda has definitely gotten a fair amount of spotlight in recent years, so it's not the end of the world, but yeah, it definitely felt like a bit of false advertising. And the other thing is, like, throughout this game's story, there's no, like, huge revelations. It's mostly stuff we already knew. Zelda gets flung back in time where she meets Rauru and Sonia, who help her get accustomed to the time she's in. Then they meet freaking Ganondorf, and she's like, oh, that man has this evil aura to him, and from my time there was... And then Rauru is like, yeah, you shouldn't tell us about your time because it would fuck with the timeline or whatever. And then, you know, Ganondorf winds up killing Rauru, or not Rauru, Sonia, which causes Rauru to go ape shit. And but that's the thing, this is all stuff we already knew from Tears of the Kingdom. And yeah, we get to find out a little bit more about the sages of the different races who weren't even named characters in Tears of the Kingdom. You actually get to see them with their masks off, but I mean, they're not like particularly great characters. They're nowhere near as interesting as the champions from Breath of the Wild, or even the modern sages from Tears of the Kingdom. So overall, yeah, it's just, most of this game is just stuff we already knew. Also, one of the most disappointing things in this whole game for me was the fact that in Tears of the Kingdom, we get to see Twin Rova, right? As Kotake and Koome. You know, they're briefly seen in a cutscene as two Gerudo or Gerudo, however it's pronounced, who are kneeling down, who are both notably blue and red. And I think one of the coolest things they could have done in this game was have a boss fight where they fuse into Twin Rova. You know, they could have brought back a remix of the classic song, the ba-ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da. But nope, that's not what happens at all. They are just, you fight them early in the game as Metal Link, and they don't even get named. They're just basically two generic Gerudo guards or captains, whatever, and they don't really do anything interesting with them. And yeah, damn, it just started raining outside. That's so nice. But yeah, they don't do anything interesting with them. Hell, they could have even been playable characters. No playable Ganondorf, although I understand that they were trying to make this a more story-focused game. Like, they could have had him be like a post-game unlock or something. I think just having Demon Lord Ganondorf, which is one of the coolest designs, arguably the coolest design for Ganondorf that's ever been in a Zelda game, riding on his horse would have been so badass as a playable character, but it just doesn't happen. But who knows, maybe this game will get DLC in the future. Or maybe it won't, because Tears of the Kingdom hasn't gotten DLC. Yeah, and that's another thing that did not get announced at the Nintendo Direct, is no DLC for this game. Although it's had a few small updates since it launched. I think that was mostly just a handful of new missions and some new weapons. But there's no, like, new characters, no new maps, like what Age of Calamity got. And yeah, in the same way that Tears of the Kingdom felt like a quote-unquote expansion for Breath of the Wild, this game feels like an expansion for Age of Calamity. And just like Tears of the Kingdom, it also didn't get DLC, so yeah, even though it's overall, it's a good game. I'm not super familiar with, like, Musou games. From what I understand, the original Hyrule Warriors, especially the definitive edition, is considered one of the better Warriors games, Warriors/Musou games. But I've only played the Hyrule Warrior games in Persona Scramble, so that's the only frame of reference I have. And yeah, this one, overall, it's good. I just thought the story was disappointing. I definitely prefer the original Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition just because that's the ultimate Zelda fan service game. And I would really like it if, Nintendo commissioned another Hyrule Warriors game of that nature, where it's just a big fan service game with characters across the whole series, instead of being like a prequel game. Oh, another thing I thought was interesting about this game is how basically Kalamo, in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, there's a location called the Ancient Tree, and you find out in this game that Kalamo is that ancient tree, because his whole thing is he's traveling Hyrule to find the perfect place to plant his roots so he can turn into a Deku tree. And he finds that place, which is the ancient tree from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which is kind of cool and all, but this game answers questions that nobody was asking. Like, I don't think anyone was really super interested in the ancient tree. Like, I think it would have been more interesting if he became the actual Deku tree that you meet in Korok Forest, but that's just not what happened. And also, the ancient hero from Tears of the Kingdom, if you beat all the shrines in that game, you get an outfit called the Ancient Heroes Aspect that turns Link into this weird Hylian Zonai hybrid thing. You don't get any information about that in this game either, so that's probably just going to go down as one of the great unsolved mysteries of the Zelda universe, which, I'm okay with. I don't mind there being... Not everything needs an answer, that's part of the reason that Majora's Mask is so great, because, what the hell even is Majora's Mask? What was the Fierce Deity Mask? What was the deal with the Happy Mask Salesman? Sometimes not answering questions is the right choice. But yeah, overall, this game is solid. Just, go into it with tempered expectations. I would definitely recommend it to Zelda fans, but, general gamers might decide to skip it. At the end of the day, if you want just, a fun action RPG, this will scratch the itch, but, again, it's a Musou game. You're going to be fighting hordes of monsters. You'll just go through a level and be fighting, hundreds of enemies. And I know some people might find that boring, but I personally find the Musou gameplay, at least of the Hyrule Warrior games, to be somewhat relaxing, so there's that. But yeah, this game, overall, it's alright. I think it's my least favorite of the 4 games that I have, but I don't hate it. Now, going from my least favorite Switch 2 game to what I would consider the number 1 best game on this system. You gotta get this game if you get a Switch 2. Kirby Air Riders. Yes, that's right. Another racing game, except this game is way the fuck better than Mario Kart World. And it's also way better than the original Kirby Air Ride all the way back on the GameCube, which is just crazy to me that we got a sequel to an old beloved game. And it actually wound up being better than the original game. Most of the time when that sort of thing happens, the new version is, mediocre or maybe slightly worse than the original game that's a sequel to. But here, this is, everything I would have wanted in a sequel to Kirby Air Ride. There's more playable characters, more stars. It has all the things you would have expected from the original game. There's the air ride mode, there's the top ride mode, there's a new city trial map that is actually even more interesting and larger than the original city trial map. They added online play. And I think they could have just stopped right there and people would have been happy. But then Sakurai, the maniac, went the extra mile and added a freaking single-player story mode and a whole, cart customization system where you can put, stickers and accessories on your carts and sell them online for, in-game currency that you can use to buy other carts. And there's even an online lobby area for when you set up matches, kind of similar to the, the battle arenas from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, except you're actually able to walk around off your air ride vehicle and jump and, emote at other characters, almost like a little miniature MMO. So I thought that was such a cool extra feature that they added, and the single player mode is pretty good. Like, I wouldn't say it's like this god tier bastion of great storytelling. You know, it does have an actual story with cutscenes where essentially, you know, there's this, I forget his name, there's like this machine dude who's trapped on Warp Star and he can't move. So he makes a wish to Galactic Nova, which is this big, like, satellite that orbits Popstar. Did I say Warp Star before? I meant to say Popstar. I'm not super familiar with Kirby lore, but Galactic Nova grants his wish, sends all these air ride vehicles down to Popstar, and the denizens, you know, Kirby and Waddle Dee, Meta Knight, and all of his friends start using the air ride vehicles as vehicles to get around and do chores and whatnot. And then one day, all of the air ride vehicles start to head off in a certain direction, so Kirby and friends embark on an adventure to see where they're going. Yeah, anyway, the actual story mode is pretty cool because you'll basically be going down this road. You'll have 3 challenges to pick. So you pick a challenge, and they range from things like doing a race to doing a battle where you have to beat the other racers. Or, you know, there'll be like a gourmet race where you have to eat the most amount of food in a short period of time. And then when you clear the challenge, you get a power-up that increases the stats of your vehicle, which starts off like garbage. But with each challenge you complete, you get power-ups, you get stronger. And at the end of each area, you have a boss. Well, I don't remember if it was the end of every single area, but there were multiple boss fights throughout the story mode. And the cool thing about these boss fights is they're actual bosses with phases. And, you know, it would be like Robo DDD, Nightmare, what's his face, 02 from Kirby 64. And all of these bosses also appear in the city trial mode, by the way. Yeah, hey, it's Time Manipulator Togu again. I realized that I forgot to explain what exactly the city trial mode is. So essentially, city trial is a game mode where you and a bunch of other players spawn in this large open-ended city area, and you have, I think by default it's set to 6 minutes to explore the city area and collect as many power-ups as you can. And there's all these like random different events that'll occur over the 6-minute period. And during that time, you can also attack other players and make them lose their power-ups to mess with them. And once the timer runs out, everyone gathers in a stadium to partake in a challenge at the end that ranges from things such as races, or a minigame where everyone battles each other, or boss fights where everyone has to team up to take on a boss. It's very fun and easily the crown jewel of Kirby Air Riders, as well as the original game back on the GameCube. And yeah, I thought the story mode was pretty cool. I kind of wish that maybe there was a little bit more randomization in the challenges you encounter, because they're the same every single time. But overall, it was still really enjoyable, and there's a pretty cool surprise at the end, which I won't tell you what it is, but if you've played the game, you know what I mean. And yeah, the city trial mode was always fun as hell in the original, but now that we have online and up to 16, what was it, 16 players is the max? Yeah, I think it was 16 players per city trial match, and you can have like 32 people in a lobby. It just drastically increased the shelf life of this game, because the original Kirby Air Ride was something I would play when I'd have friends over, but I didn't really play it that much on my own. I think I played maybe around 10 hours of that game back in the day. And overall, those were a good 10 hours, but it wasn't like a way of life for me. This game, though, I think I put around 60-something hours into this game, just because the online and the single-player mode just gives you more stuff to do. And it makes you want to hop into a lobby and race with people or battle people in the city trial mode. Overall, I think Kirby Air Riders is easily the best game on the Switch 2. And it's definitely worth picking up if you have a Switch 2. I think, like, of these 4 games, Air Riders and Bonanza are easily the best. I think these are both absolute essentials for any Switch 2 gamers out there. And personally, I liked Air Riders more, but I can see why some people would prefer Bonanza. I think as to which one's better, it really comes down to, do you want a single-player platforming adventure action game, or do you want a chaotic online multiplayer racing party game? Well, I hesitate to even call Air Riders a racing game because it's really just like the original game. It's more like a fighting game disguised as a racing game, which is why if you're thinking like, okay, well, there's already Mario Kart, why would I get this racing game when I already have this cartoony racing game? It's because this game just has a very different feel to it, and it has different modes. There's nothing like City Trial in Mario Kart World, and overall this just feels more like a chaotic fighting game, where this is just like a cartoony basic racing game. They're both really good, and I definitely think they're both worth picking up. But if I had to choose one, I would definitely go with Air Riders. Easy. So yeah, those are all of the physical Switch 2 exclusive games I've gotten. Like I said, Air Riders and Bonanza are the best. Mario Kart World is overall a good game, even though I think it could have been better. And Hyrule Warriors, it's still a solid game, just don't expect much from the story. Now, there are a few other games that I would like to grab that are year one games, like Metroid Prime 4. See, the reason I haven't gotten Prime 4 yet is because I still need to beat Prime 2 and 3. I'm not in a rush to pick that game up right away. In fact, when Prime 4 came out, I was actually playing the Metroid Prime 1 remaster for Switch 1, which is another great game that you should pick up if you skipped out on the Switch 1 generation. I already mentioned that I wanted to pick up Pokemon Legends ZA, and aside from that, I heard Yoshi and the Mysterious Book was pretty good. I don't know if I want to get it yet, but it's something I might look into. Let's see, there was Tomodachi Life. Personally, I'm not interested in that game at all. It's kind of like Nintendo's answer to The Sims, I guess. But, I can see why other people would enjoy it, and I've seen a lot of people posting, like, me cosplays online from that game, so I could see how that would have an appeal to certain other people. The one other game I did play was Pokemon Champions. Now, I only really played this on the first day, and yeah, it's a digital-only game, but I did have a lot of fun with it, and it was really cool to see, like, my Pokemon from the 3DS era in 3D on a big screen, not just down on the 3DS, and I do like how this game is sort of no nonsense. It just gets you right into the Pokemon battling, but they're definitely, if you were thinking this is going to be the spiritual successor to Pokemon Stadium, it feels more like a successor to Pokemon Battle Revolution, which I know that's stupid because Battle Revolution in itself was a successor to Pokemon Stadium, but like what I mean is there's no like mini games in this, there's no gym leader castle. It really is, you just build a team, go online and battle. And for a lot of people that's enough. For me, I really enjoyed the little bit of time I played with this, and I also actually like how the Pokemon roster is very limited because it allows Pokemon that wouldn't normally ever get any usage a chance to shine before, they bring in like legendaries and stuff. So overall, it's a pretty fun experience. Like if you just want to get right into the Pokemon battles, this is a good way to do it. However, you don't have as many Pokemon choices, so I can see why some people would definitely prefer to do their battling on Pokemon Violet, which I still need to beat the DLC for. I definitely think if they wanted to go the extra mile, they could add something like a gym leader castle, some single player content, maybe even some mini games like Pokemon Stadium, where you could go online and play mini games with people. But yeah, overall, that's another thing you could play. I don't know if that's available on Switch 1, and I believe they're coming out with a mobile phone version. I don't know when that's supposed to come out, semi-soonish. But yeah, there's Pokemon Champions, and also it's not really a Switch 2 game, but there's Pokemon Fire Red version and Leaf Green version that were re-released for Switch 2 and Switch 1. And I remember there was a whole crap ton of manufactured fake outrage about this game, well, these games, when it came out online, because people were complaining about the lack of online functionality, and oh no, it's $20, $20, I'm gonna go bankrupt. I made a whole video explaining why I thought a lot of the complaints about this game were straight up bullshit, so you can click onto my channel. Check that out if you want to see my extended thoughts on the re-releases Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Yeah, that's pretty much all the games I played for the first year of Switch 1. Definitely going to pick up Prime 4 and Legend ZA at some point. I might get Yoshi in the Mysterious Book. I definitely think that the Switch 2 is the most affordable modern gaming option, and unlike Sony and Xbox, it has actual good exclusive games that you can only get here. Nintendo, I think, is the only major console manufacturer, I guess, who seems to understand that exclusives need to actually be exclusive because it gives people an incentive to buy your device, because otherwise, if Nintendo put stuff like Donkey Kong Bonanza on Steam, like, why the fuck would anyone buy a Switch 2? And yeah, at $500, I know that might seem a little pricey, but as time goes on, the Switch 2 will solidify its place as being the affordable option in the modern gaming landscape. And I think a lot of the haters and grifters will be proven wrong over time. Which also reminds me, if you see any people, I'm not going to name names, but if you know about Nintendo grifters, you know the channels I'm talking about. Don't give them hate. Don't make videos talking shit about them. Don't leave comments. Just fucking ignore them. Because what they want is for you to hate them because it gives their channel attention, which allows them to make money. So the best way to fight people like that is to just ignore them until they go away. It's like, if you've ever seen the Justice League show from the 90s and early 2000s that was on Toonami, right? There's an episode of that show where there's this, like, what was it? Like a robot or some suit of armor thing. But the point is, they're fighting this bad guy, and nothing can hurt them. He's completely invincible because hate gives him power. So the way they beat him is by not using violence and basically just not feeding him hate, right? It's the same thing with all of these YouTube channels out there. Just fucking ignore them. Don't waste your time giving them your hate, because that's what they want. That's what empowers them. Overall, Switch 2 gets a thumbs up from me. I think it's a good console. If you can afford it and you want it, just go get it. Don't let anyone guilt you out of it. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of this type of content from me, where I just sort of point my phone at objects and talk about it unscripted, let me know in the comments down below. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and yeah, go fuck yourself.